Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. This is the Second Legacy, and oh, do we have a treat for you today. We are diving into another potluck episode where we take bits of goodness across the internet around the Second Amendment, and we deliver it in one tasty dish here on the Second Legacy. Thank you so much for checking this out. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on. And Tim, my man, it's Friday. It's a potluck day. Are you excited? I'm excited.
It just doesn't get any better than this.
It doesn't. Potluck days are amazing. They're so much fun.
Potluck is fun.
Yeah.
Got 2 days of sun and fun and wonderful Indiana coming up. You know, it's good. It's all good.
Hey, okay. I like that attitude. I like that. Okay. Well, Tim, let's get right down to brass tacks. This is important because if you guys are watching at home on the Second Legacy or on the road or wherever you decide to consume this content, we basically break down potlucks into 3 different topics, and Tim gets to decide the order of which one. So, Tim, this is exciting. We've got Manchin. He's making the Democrats real nervous. That's a fun one. That's all about presidential bids and what CNN is doing around that reaction. Then we've got Chris Murphy in the Senate striking back and doing some pretty, in my opinion, insulting gun control amendments added to the defense spending bills. And then we have Matthew McConaughey, which ironically, of all people, has pretty much revealed the corruption and the manipulation inside the Senate Safer Communities Act. What would you like? What sounds like a good appetizer here?
Well, let's go with Manchin because it's just so much fun. I love it when the left melts down, and they're definitely
good.
in full panic mode now. Just for the sake of clarity here, I haven't read what the potluck items are, so I don't know the details around them. So I'm making a little bit of an assumption here. Part of the fun.
Part of the fun.
So but I just love that Manchin and Sinema just love to stymie the far left in the Senate, and let's do him.
Let's get it. I love it. So we're starting off with a Manchin piece of delicious because, as Tim just mentioned, Sinema and Manchin, just so you guys know the backstory here, they're the ones that kept the filibuster in place, or at least the ones who publicly said they kept the filibuster in place, which prevented all the gun control that we saw last year and into the beginning of this year. But let's get this. Mr. Producer, can you throw up number 10? And I'm going to show you the CNN video title here, Tim. Manchin's New Hampshire trip will leave Democrats shivering. CNN has either been paying attention to our titles and thumbnails or something's up.
Yeah. Well, it would appear that they might be entering some sort of a panic mode, or you never know. I mean, propaganda is a weird thing, man. Sometimes they're trying to steer the conversation by, making such statements. So it's hard to tell what they're really up to here. Okay. But
well, I'm gonna play these clips, and it's gonna leave very little to the imagination. I promise you there. So, Mr. Producer, let's hit number 11. Let's get Tim in here on this.
Today, Senator Joe Manchin is set to attend a town hall in New Hampshire hosted by the group No Labels, fueling speculation of a potential third-party run. No Labels is actively considering running a third-party candidate in the 2024 presidential race and pushing for a unity ticket featuring one Democrat and one Republican. Now, Manchin told Manu last week, as he does just about every week about whatever the topic is, at Manu, that the event is not about running for president, but wouldn't rule it out either.
All right. So that's the setup, Tim. We've got Manchin, who is renowned to be, am I a Republican? Am I a Democrat? I'm a Democrat in a really red state. Am I going to run for president? Am I not? Yeah. This is hilarious. This is, like, legitimately, if he does this throws a wrench in the entire Democratic apparatus going into 2024, just like RFK Jr. is. Exact same thing.
Well, it's interesting because I don't know that he's made any statements saying that he really wants to run for president. Now, what's interesting about Manchin is he's kind of an old school, middle of the road Democrat, something that most of Congress and Senate has long since, shed. There's my visits to D.C. and hanging out with various representatives and having conversations with them. There are really no pro-gun Democrats left. And there aren't very many there aren't really hardly any moderate Democrats left, like less than a handful. Really. So him and Sinema kind of are outliers within within the Senate, and so it's really interesting to see this. Now I understand the panic because I was one of the earliest elections I took part in was when Ross Perot ran for president. Actually got 19% of the vote because throughout most of my adult life I've been not real big on the two-party system. It's something I see as a failing of our political system. And so I've always wanted to see a third party run, a successful third party. And what that did was basically, I learned afterwards, was put Bill Clinton in the White House because it siphoned off votes.
Exactly right.
Right? And so this is what the Democrats are fearing right now. Because if Manchin or RFK run as a third party under the No Labels brand or some other group, and I believe Joe Lieberman heads that up, who was another middle-of-the-road Democrat, by the way.
Exactly.
And so I can see why this would cause them panic, because it won't take very many votes being siphoned off to put Donald Trump or somebody else in power again. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to watch. And I do expect their heads to explode as this goes on.
So you want to see the actual numbers? Because I got two things in this clip for you I want you to watch. One, check out the number. Oh, it's coming. Okay. Check out the numbers and then watch the body language. This is going to be fun of the anchors. All right, Mr. Producer, number 12 for me.
So, Harry, who would win the voters who like neither Biden nor Trump if they faced each other in a general election matchup?
Yeah, so take a look. This sort of gives you an understanding how those voters who don't like Biden or Trump say they'll vote in 2024. Look, it's close, but those voters are favoring Joe Biden by a 41% to 34% margin. And I think that is part of the reason why you're seeing all these Democrats perhaps be worried, because they know this is a chunk of voters that Joe Biden needs to win. And if they like Biden more than Trump and all of a sudden you introduce a third-party candidate, maybe things might end up a little bit differently.
You know, to that point, what if Joe Manchin or Cornel West ends up on the ballot as a third-party candidate come November?
Yeah, so here's the big reveal right at the end of the segment. All right, Biden versus Trump in 2024. If there's no third party, look at this. Biden by a point. The effect of a third party, potential third party candidate is small, but it is enough to flip it. And now if a third party candidate is included, look at that, Trump by 1 point. So Democrats are the ones who don't want a third-party candidate, and this is the polling, this is the data that they're looking at, guys.
Manu, that was a great big reveal, Harry.
Thank you.
You backed it up.
That was great, Harry.
That was great. I was so glad you brought that to us. Did you see the chick, the lady in green, where she just like, she physically recoils, she goes, oh. So when you look at both of these clips, Tim, like, by the way, very good forecasting on what that next clip was going to happen. You honestly, he hasn't seen these clips yet. That was pretty good, sir. So when you see their reactions and you see CNN putting labels out like this, they're shivering, freaking out, and then they put polling from CNN, which again is not a Republican-leaning organization. You can see where this goes, Tim, and this is where it gets really, really interesting, because the far left will never vote for the middle. They're going to go Democrat or as close to the far left as they can get. However, the moderate Democrats, they would be inclined to kind of go away from the woke piece of the Democratic Party. I'm just saying, like, I'm not forecasting, but it's interesting to see their reactions at the very least. That's interesting.
Watching them go after RFK has been interesting, right? Because they're just brutalizing him. He's anti-Semitic, even though what he said was not anti-Semitic. They claim he's a racist. They claim he's this. They claim he's that. He freaks them out. I don't see him as being that strong of a candidate, right? But then you have Manchin. Manchin has appeal. Manchin has appeal even in the moderates on the Republican side, right? Because he has held the line on things like the filibuster. So people that there are a number of Republicans that are staunchly anti-Trump. And so if they were given a third party candidate, that might siphon off some of Trump's voters. But I really think more people are upset with Biden, because if you take a look at some other polls out there, Biden's job performance, his numbers are wildly underwater. Now, people will say, though, in a matchup between him and Trump where they're not asking specific questions about things like the economy or stuff like that, well, Biden seems to edge Trump out by a couple of points, depending on what poll you're looking at. But when you take a look at job approval numbers, Biden's like 70% of even Democrats aren't happy with the way things are going. So the polls aren't really able to tell you what's going to happen. They're oftentimes wrong, but there are certain things when when a poll number is within the margin of error, 3-5 points, you can't really discern much from that. But when you have a poll that says 70% of the voting population is not happy with the way things are going, okay, so we're well out of the margin of error there. It's pretty telling.
Something's off. So CNN's like, quickly, can we cue the shivering, cue the freaking out? Yeah, it's just start breathing really quickly. Yeah. I thought that was interesting because usually, again, it's not the individual content of the story. It's the reaction sometimes is more of the story. And I thought that was a very good case of that.
I got a question
but
for you.
But you know what?
Real quick.
Oh, no, hit
with
me.
regards to Manchin.
Hit me.
Where do you think he stands? So let's say that he actually makes a bid for the presidency, and let's say some crazy thing happens and he gets elected, right? Where do you think he stands if they're able to successfully flip the House and the Senate to a Democrat majority and they pass an assault weapons ban? You think he would sign it?
If they pass, so in this hypothetical, if they actually passed an assault weapons ban,
Makes it through the House and the Senate. Do you think Manchin would sign it?
Right.
That's tough, isn't it?
So it's a tough answer, and here's kind of my my take on that. I think that his natural inclination would be not to sign it, but I think that the pressures from the far left and the pressures from the Democrat establishment would say you have to do this or you're going to lose this on your energy reforms. Or I think it would be one of those scenarios where they say, hey, you wanted coal's really important to you because you're from West Virginia, so we're just going to hold up your whole energy reform package until you give us this. I think that is more likely than anything else.
Manchin strikes me as the type that is more calculated in his decisions on how to behave. And so I think if it was his first term and if it was past midterm or closer towards the end of the term, I think he'd be less inclined to sign it, hoping for a second term. Now, in the second term,
I would agree, yeah.
There might be, I don't know. It's tough. I think just because he's such a political creature and he is, he doesn't necessarily follow the herd. And he seems to listen somewhat to his constituents. And if he were president, I think he would take a look at what happened in 1994, what happened to Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton even came out and said what I did in 1994 was really detrimental to my presidency. I mean, they flipped the House. I mean, it had very serious ramifications after the 1994 assault weapons ban. And I think he would take a look at that and go, has the tide of public opinion changed? Or would I be committing the same problem and the same mistake? So it'd be interesting to see. But yeah.
That's one of those you can't really ever predict because everything is so fluid all the time.
Too many moving parts.
There's so many moving parts, but my inclination would absolutely, like I said, I can't guarantee what he would do or wouldn't do, but I guarantee you there would be twisting of the arms for something else he cared about more. Yeah. I guarantee that would happen.
It could be negotiated, perhaps.
I think that would be it. So now I get to choose this one, Tim, because you've had your day in the sun.
Okay.
I want to talk about Matthew McConaughey. All right.
Joy.
I do. But this is kind of the theme here. It's not always necessarily the content of the story. Sometimes it's what they don't say or how they react. And this is what they didn't say here because this is important. While I walk through this, tell me if you pick this up. I'm going to read these really quickly. So, Mr. Producer, can you hit me with number 1, please? So, Matthew McConaughey, all right, has another demand of Washington on gun safety. On Thursday, McConaughey launched the Green Lights Grant Initiative, a privately funded program intended to help smaller school districts and local education agencies apply for the competitive grants available under the law. The funding is meant to help establish safer and healthier learning environments and prevent and respond to acts of bullying, violence, and hate, as well as other educational programs. Now, this is in the Senate Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, okay? This is the whole big thing that they passed last year. This part right here blows my mind, and then we'll go back to number 3, but number 4, Mr. Producer. Under the law, the grant money can be reallocated if it isn't distributed by 2026. Quote, that would make passing of the bill a great symbol that wasn't really activated and it didn't become useful, and I think that'd be a shame, McConaughey said. So, Tim, like I said, it's not always the articles and it's not always the story. Sometimes it's things they throw in there for context. Did you know that all the money from the Safer Communities aspect, billions of dollars, would be reallocated after 2026 if it wasn't used? Did you know that?
I did not know that.
But I thought it was for the children forever. I thought this was like the most sweeping gun control that you could ever imagine. And it was big, bold initiatives. And it was all about solving the problem of the scourge of gun violence in the United States. But they put a sunset on the funding, and then it can be reallocated. And by the way, Tim, I'm sure this is just happenstance. Mr. Producer, can you throw number 3 in there? The need for such a program first became clear, McConaughey said, when the actor and his wife Camilla had dinner with Representative Tony Gonzalez, Republican from Texas, a few months after the bipartisan law was enacted. The lawmaker noted that only 12 of the 119 schools in his district had applied for grants under the law, and none got approved. So, if you back this out a little bit, Tim,
Wow.
You've got I know, it's great. So the Senate, the whole Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which was signed by Republicans and Democrats, they're not getting off the hook for that one. They basically did three things. It provided funding for schools. It provided the ATF the ability to discriminate against 18 to 21-year-olds, of which they did, and now there's a mandatory 10-day waiting period for all of them. That's an entire demographic, by the way. And then the third thing was they did the funding for red flag laws, of which they can't actually get any of that funding into any of the states because it required due process, and none of them have due process. So what exactly did this bill fund if the schools, only 19 out of 112 applied and 0 actually got the grants? So much so that we need a private institution to come up and say, this is how you get the money. What's the point here?
Yeah, and the other question I would have is when they say it can be reallocated to what? What restrictions on the reallocation are there? I mean, is this a part of a bigger plan to basically pass these billions of dollars in funding and then deny the funding to the people that it was supposedly supposed to go to? And then at the end, in 2026 or whenever it is, they go, oh, hey, look, we got all these billions of dollars. Let's throw this into the CDC's push for gun control. I mean, where can this money get allocated to? And
isn't that odd?
Yeah,
because
it's like they put up they built this big slush fund, sat it over there, and like nobody will pay attention because it's set several years down the road, and then all of a sudden, quietly, it's going to be reallocated to what?
It's almost, you know what this really reminds me of, Tim? And I mean, like I am off my rocker, but I seem to remember the pandemic funds also getting reallocated towards other things right after the pandemic. Do you remember that?
Yeah, like let's give billions to the pandemic, and then hey, by the way, let's go ahead and fund community growth programs and social security, whatever they put it into. It's like they were reallocating that money everywhere, and it seemed like it was discretionary even for local jurisdictions in some cases. Or there's also outright just loss and theft of that money, but that's a different discussion.
So wait a minute, hold on. So Tim, hold on. No, there's a thread of commonality here. I'm like a bloodhound. I'm on this. So you're saying that government would pass big, sweeping, massive bills that have billions of dollars of printed money that would be distributed to states for a designated purpose, and after the sunset provision hits in the bill, all of a sudden it can be reallocated. Are you implying that that was the whole point the whole time?
More than likely,
no.
Yes, because governments do things like that.
They would never. They would never. This is about solving the scourge of gun violence in the United States, Tim.
Yes.
You know that.
Making communities safer through misappropriation of funds and hiding billions of dollars. Yep.
Yeah. This kills me on the inside. Because this entire thing, and the third, by the way, it kind of actually dovetails nicely into the third piece. But this entire thing has been touted by Biden, by Chris Murphy, by the Democrats in the Senate, by John Cornyn in Texas, all the Republican senators who signed on as something that we could do that would really make a difference. So in the end, if we zoom all the way out, we've got 18 to 21-year-olds in this country who are discriminated against because they're 18 to 21, and they have to have a 10-day mandatory waiting period per the ATF on all background checks just because of their age, not anything that they've done, which is a constitutional infringement. Then we have red flag law, a really slush fund to bribe states into doing red flag laws. And the provision in that was you can't really do it if you don't have due process, which means none of them can get money for it because there's no due process. And then the third one is funding for schools. And all of this money is not going anywhere, but the 18 to 21-year-olds are effectively discriminated against. This is some crap.
It is. It really is. And this is something that'll fly right under the radar of most people. And it's because
oh my God,
they won't talk about it. Now it's amazing that it was somewhat brought up in this article, but I can guarantee you when it comes time for these funds to become liquid and get reallocated, they will not talk about it, and they'll have all sorts of these activist groups pushing to get that money in their little greedy hands. And
that's right. We got to have more money coming in, and all the different budgets and all the different things. $5 billion for gun violence prevention that Biden tried to do 3 different times. It's almost like there's a set amount of money that they all want. Anyway, you know what, Tim? I'm going to get too angry. I'm going to get my own little Tim rant going if I don't move on. So now, here comes the dessert, Tim. And unfortunately, the dessert is Chris Murphy, so it's not going to be tasty.
No.
But
This is a
but
poop
it is going to
sandwich.
happen.
Yeah.
This is a poop sandwich. So to set the table before we send the people out into their beautiful weekend, Mr. Producer, could you play number 5 for me?
Oh, so this was probably one of the last things we ended up getting done.
It's a tricky business.
And those due process rights that now apply to every blue state, in addition to every red state, are in there because people like Tom were driving a hard bargain.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, so just to put a pretty little bow on that, you have 3 sitting senators there, right, middle, left. Chris Murphy says, well, this was the hardest part. We really scrapped over this part of the Senate Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. And, in the end, those due process rights are in there because people like Tom drove a hard bargain. Oh, my... Oh, okay. I've got 2 things. I'm losing my mind on the inside right now. So I got 2 things here. One, why is a due process... Why are the due process rights something that get thrown in as okay, fine, we'll put it in there? That is a constitutional right. That is not a cherry on top.
Yeah.
That is like... It's not a hard bargain. What are you crazy?
Yes, they are.
I mean, like, it's just... And they're trying to sell it to us like it's look what we gave you.
Yeah, you got to keep it.
No, you didn't. God, it hurts.
Yeah,
and then I'm losing my
Just
words here.
keep in mind, people like Murphy look at the Constitution as more or less of a outdated suggestion.
A suggestion?
Than a hard and fast protection of individual rights and putting government in a box and things like that. No. It just that was written over 200 years ago by guys that wear wigs, and some of them were slave owners, and so we can't take anything they said seriously. And so this is just the Constitution really is a disposable document. We can go more down the path of Canada or something like that and just do what we want. If we want to enact a new rule or law, we'll just get the police to decide. In case the Canadian Royal Mounted Police, they routinely just wake up one day and go, well, you know what, this entire class of firearms, let's just get rid of them. Yeah. And that's what happens when you don't have a Constitution and a Bill of Rights that protect you and your rights. And that's where these clowns want to go.
You know what, Tim? I look forward to the next bill that they put forward where they say, guys, we know that we did all these things to take your rights away, but we gave you free speech.
Yeah, well, my favorite is when Gavin Newsom gets out there and boasts about all the laws he's passed and then says, and California is the freest state in the union.
It's the most free on the planet. Sign up for my 28th Amendment. It's great. Well, Tim, I think it's time for you to get a little spicy because the stuff I'm about to share with you, you're probably not going to like.
Oh boy, here we go.
This is what Mr. Chris Murphy contributed as amendments to the defense spending fund this week. So I'm just going to start hitting this, and we're just going to get going, and I can't wait to hear what you think. Mr. Producer, let's start with number 7. Waiting period and notification requirements for firearm purchases on military installations. See, this is close to your home, close to your heart. A, there's waiting periods. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, the Secretary of Defense shall require a 7-day waiting period before an individual may purchase a firearm sold on a military installation. A 4-day waiting period before an individual may purchase ammunition sold on a military installation for a firearm purchased by the individual on a military installation. And that's just part A, Tim. Hold on a second. Mr. Producer, number 8, and then we'll unleash you. Notwithstanding any other provision, the Secretary shall require all these retail facilities to notify the provost marshal or equivalent and military commander for the installation when a member of the armed forces, a family member of such member, or a civilian employee of the department purchases a firearm on installation. So, 7-day waiting period for the firearm, Tim. 4 for ammunition, and you got to tell everybody for a registry when you do it. For the people who risk their lives for this country.
Yeah. The backbone of our our deterrent against aggression from foreign powers, the people we trust with billions, if not trillions of dollars of military hardware, people that can go to work, drive a tank, fly a jet, drop a bomb, launch a missile, but we're not going to trust them with their rights. How about you stick that right where the sun doesn't shine, Mr. Murphy, because you are an a-hole. That is unbelievable. I mean, why do they keep going after the military? Once you get out of the military, they still go after you. And they all go out there and they go, let's go improve the VA. They don't mean any of that. And they don't do any of that. It's just all for show for these people to put a feather in their cap. Meanwhile, they're crapping all over veterans and all over active duty. And they're using the military apparently as some sort of proving ground for new social theory. It is disgusting. And these, again, are the people that have volunteered their lives to defend our nation. And these are the people they want to target with this nonsense.
Exactly.
This guy needs a good swift kick in the junk, dude. I hate him.
You know what?
I don't hate very many people, but he's up there, man.
You know what? I think that's the best remedy for this situation. A good old kick in the nads.
Yep.
You know, sometimes you just need life to tell you you're wrong.
It's just a reality check, you know? That's how stupid people learn, through pain.
It'll teach you. But Tim, remember, they gave us due process because that was a tough sticking point. So now, let's wrap this up because it's not over. Let's do number 9, Mr. Producer. Oh, let's dive into this. So this is restriction of privately owned firearms on property of Department of Defense. The Secretary of Defense shall establish a policy for the Department of Defense that 1. Prohibits the possession and storage of privately owned firearms in military barracks and dormitories, and 2. Prohibits the possession of privately owned firearms that are not related to the performance of official duties on property of the department by anyone who does not live on property of the department. So you have to go through a 7-day waiting period, a 4-day waiting period for ammunition. Then you have to tell everybody that you have a firearm. And oh, by the way, because this next amendment I'm about to do, you can't even have a firearm.
Yeah.
What?
You know, throughout history, various military installations and stuff have done things like this, like not allowed soldiers and Marines and sailors and all that stuff to have firearms within the barracks. You had to check them into the armory or whatever. And a lot of the folks would just go out off base, rent a house with a few other people and keep their stuff there, whatnot.
And there you go, right.
And this is what they're pushing people to do, because apparently they're focusing on government-owned property. So any type of base housing, things like that,
Correct.
this is going to be excluded. So this is just going to push people off base, which, you know, look, one of the perks to being in the military is the fact that you can live on base. It reduces your monthly expenses. So they're just going to push people off, basically punish them because they want to exercise their constitutionally protected rights. And it's just, again, they're targeting the military, and it just drives me nuts. These are the very same people that they arm with the world's most modern weapons, but not to be trusted with their rights.
Nope. You can drive the AC-130, and you can be a gunner in there, and you can drive an M1 Abrams. You can you know what? You can even drive an A-10. You know, you could do a little tank busting, but if you want that Glock, though, I'm going to need you to ask. I'm going to ask you to move off base.
Yeah.
And make sure you tell everybody where you have it.
When you come out of that missile silo with all those nuclear weapons and go back to your room, you're not going to be allowed to have a gun because you're not to be trusted with something like that. I mean, just ridiculous, dude.
Weapon of mass destruction, Tim.
Yep.
Weapon of mass destruction. Not the nuclear weapons you were just talking about. No. The Glock.
The Glock.
The Glock.
Yes.
And make sure there's no awareness. I think we should go to our original prescription of swift kick in the nuts. I'm with you.
Now, the only time I could see this having any merit is if they were just banning specifically 40 Smith & Wesson, but that's a different discussion.
Oh, no! Don't do that. Now, you just threw a grenade in the comment boxes.
Kidding. I know. Mac's anti-gun. No, he's not. He's anti-40. He always has been. Yeah. He's anti-gun.
Yep. Like you just threw your weapon of your version of a mass destruction weapon in the comments field is what you just did. Man, this guy right here. You want to say something negative about Glocks too? You want to just have some fun while we're at it?
For us, yeah. Carl already did that for us after the show. He made a nice Twitter post saying Glocks are trash or whatever. Come at me, bro.
Oh,
whatever. It's pretty funny.
Oh my God, that was pretty good. But you know what? I think that was a delicious meal, Tim. That was a good potluck. What do you think?
Yeah, it was a great way to head off into the weekend. And if you folks would like to be a part of our call-in show, there is a link in the video description below. Follow that link. We'll get you on the show. We'll have a great conversation. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you guys soon.